All right, out in my backyard, got a nice day. Got a lot of work done today, and I want to talk to you a little bit today about my project. My project you see over my left shoulder is my fence, or what will be my fence. And I was talking my neighbor to, and this behind me over here is my back neighbor, and that way is my next door neighbor. And so we talk a lot, and he's got some projects going out behind me, and so I went over and see what he's doing, and he comes over and sees what we're doing. And so he asked, what are you making this time? And so I said, well, I'm making a fence. And it's kind of a joke, and kind of an inside joke between us, that good fences make good neighbors. And there's a lot of history with this particular property and this particular line right here between my neighbor and I. We, for example, this whole area was nothing but shrubs and buckthorn when we first moved here, and we've been clearing it out. And a lot of this line used to be trees, which kind of kept a nice barrier between our property, and it, of course, no longer exists. And each tree we cut down, she was thoroughly disapproving of. We'll say it like that. Well, then, in clearing all this out, she didn't like the fact that we burned, and there were legitimate reasons. There were some, city ordinances we weren't aware of, like when you could burn, and actually miles per hour of wind when you can't burn. And so we had the police make several visits to us at her request. So one of the things we've said was, well, good fences make good neighbors. I've heard that quite a few times, and so we decided to build a good fence. And I got thinking about good fences, and what makes a good neighbor is a good fence. Well, then the next question is, what makes a good fence? You can see my neighbor's approach over my shoulder here as to what makes a good fence. He made his nice and high, because before we moved here he had similar problems, or encounters, we'll call them encounters, with our back neighbor. And so he fixed it and remedied it. So to him, that is a good fence. It accomplishes what he wants it to do, and that's what makes something good, in a sense, is it accomplishes what its purpose is. That makes it good. A mosquito is good, believe it or not, because it does what it's supposed to do. A lot of things are good that you don't think of, because it does what it is supposed to do, and in that sense it's good. So we want to know what a good fence is, and from my perspective, I thought about building a high fence, but I've never really wanted a high fence. I kind of feel trapped in a prison. What I've always wanted is a picket fence. So I'm building a picket fence, and you can see my posts are only, they're going to be about a little bit more than 3 feet off the ground. So, how is that going to be a good fence? It's not going to keep smoke from going into her property, certainly. So it won't accomplish that perspective. From that perspective, it won't be accomplishing anything. Is it a good fence? Well, it won't fix that. It will do a couple of things. However, this fence will keep my dog in, which is actually going to end up making 4 good neighbors. Which is that's going to be good. We've got all of our neighbors kind of, we have to watch our dog, and they don't really enjoy us having to watch the dog. So that makes them a little nervous. So that'll make some good neighbors. It will create a barrier, and it will, even though it won't block the property lines that well, it will make a natural barrier, and people like to have a natural barrier, and it is good for us to do that, even if it's not a high wall or whatever. The other thing that's going to happen is these 2 posts right behind me are going to be a gate. Her grandson likes to come over on occasion, and about the same ages our kids. I think more than her grandson, maybe a granddaughter as well. But anyway, her grandkids come and play with our kids, so there'll be a nice gate for them to come through. A good fence has a good gate to let people in and to be able to get out. And I wanted to talk about good fences because I think it's important as a church that we realize that fences are necessary, but we have to know how to build them and what makes good fences. Paul talks about in his letter to the Corinthians, he talks about this idea that you need to be able to mix with the world and at the same time not be influenced by them. I didn't say that you should leave. You know, if you weren't going to keep company with bad people, you would have to leave the world. I haven't said that. Really, actually, he was saying you need to have better fences from people in the church that aren't promoting good things. That's really what he was talking about. But we do need to be. He talks about being in the world, but not of the world, and having a different. Having this barrier that where we can mingle with the world in one sense, but yet not be affected by them. So it makes a natural barrier where we can talk with one another, we can do things, but we have to have that limit that says no. This where I live is not going to be affected by you. In the same way as I would, keep my dog out. A lot of times people see the church and see fences as rules. If we think about it like that, think about the rules of Christianity, and they don't like the rules of Christianity. And if you think of a fence from that perspective, as just the rules, as just the order, they don't necessarily understand why the order is the way it is. And I think it's important for us to, just like I keep my dog from people, I think we need to be able to explain why the rules are. The rules are for our good. The fences are for good. And for other people's protection. It's not just to protect me from the outside, but that rules are meant to protect people in general. And that's what fences do. They protect people. So don't just approach people from the perspective of your rules and this is what you're supposed to do, but be able to explain why rules are that people need protection, and this is what God has done to protect us, and this is what fences are for. All right, now do it for today. A little bit shorter, but I've got to get back to work, and I'm out of thoughts.